Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you guys are joined in. Welcome to another episode of Watercolor Instructions with Sunil Kalbandi. So I'm going to do a snow scene. So this one, because it's on a wet-on-wet technique, it's going to be fairly quick. The colors and the brush, what I usually put a slide of what colors and brush I use. But for these are Saunders 300 grams rough. For this one, I'm going to just use one big mop to wet the paper, a stiff brush in case it needs a little bit of blending, and maybe a flat for quick, and a couple of riggers. This one is a smaller rig and this one is slightly rig for branches and other things which are sticking out of the ground. So if you want to know what the technique is, I think like most of the people, there's beautiful videos by Sterling Edwards, especially if you guys haven't watched how he paints sky. I think that's one is a particularly good one. It took me a while. I'm not saying I'm really good at it, but at least I feel I learned a lot from his blending techniques, and then most of his videos he uses a lot of flat brushes. So this one, I'm generally comfortable with round brushes, but this can be done in round brush. I might switch to a round brush, I'm not sure, but it's how it goes. So, but the composition again, so usually a lot of paintings I do is tend to have either a low horizon or a high horizon. So high horizon, especially for snow, is nice to show a big negative space. That's why it makes it so beautiful and effective with the watercolor is the negative space, and the paint itself paints a lot of things. So snow is particularly one of my favorite subjects, is because you can do so minimum, but it feels like it's has a big impact. Snow, as I said, is like I'm going to go 3/4, a little bit of tree line, and maybe I'm going to put in pine. There's a few more pines, and I'm going to do a little bit of troughs and cross, and then few contours just to make it look better. So keep in mind when you're painting anything to do with slightly foggish or snowy, the foreground is obviously the darker, the ones which stick out, and then you go out and then also make sure when you're painting they're slightly darker, because I'm compensating once it dries, it's going to go a little lower. So also in the snow, the colors are a little more fall colors. So I'm going to, some of the plants over here, I'm going to use fall colors, orange and reds, and then the pine cones and other things. So mainly all warm colors, and I'm going to just use a little bit of, even though it looks white, I'm going to leave some areas white, but I'm going to predominantly make it a little more gray. I'll see how it goes, but I hope you can see the drawing. I'm just checking if the drawing is still in the frame. It's still in the frame. And what you don't see is I got two rolls to blot. So if I want to blot more precisely or a little more, I use a tissue roll. And then for general purpose, I have two sponge, which all are important part of setting up your painting. And I have a little bit of another roll of tissue on the side to clean my brush. Usually have that roll on my left logistically, and then what you can't see is I got two bottles of water or cans of water. One is where I'm going to clean my dry brush, dirty water, and the other one is what I introduce to the paper. So I tend to keep one clean, one dirty, sort of speaking. And then as I said, you start, obviously you stretch the paper, and then let's see how it goes. I haven't done this before, but we will try, and then we'll try to introduce a little bit of sunset colors. So maybe I'll use a little bit of purple, red, and yellows. All right, so okay, so I'm just wetting the surface till the horizon, because I would just want to tackle that first before I can tackle the other section. So a little bit of gray, I'm going to put in a little bit of purple. I'm just cleaning the palette to get the grays. So that would be my base color. While it's fairly wet, I'm going to start mixing in a little bit of yellows. So there's too much different colors. I'm just going to clean up the palette a little bit so that I can keep my yellows a little more clean. So I'm doing a little bit of warm yellow. That one is Indian yellow, and then a little bit of red. So okay, so that's fine. So I'm just coming in. Keep in mind this one's going to go a little light. Okay, so I also said I'm going to add a little bit of purple to the sky. A little bit of that one is purple. I'm going to just add a little bit of blue. Just a smidge, just on the horizon. And okay, so while this is getting dry, and also the important thing is, I don't know whether you can notice, it's at an angle. You want to use gravity as your friend. You don't want the colors to be moving up. Even though this one seemed like a very minute or a non-consequential idea, but it's extremely important to make sure the water flows. Like you can see, it's puddling in the bottom, so that I'm using the gravity. So while it's still wet, I'm going to use a little bit of raw umber. It's nice and transparent. So I'm going to just add in a little more base color, a little more. And I'm going to slowly add a few more dark colors. So in this case, this is burnt sienna. I'm trying to, as it's getting a little drier, I'm just trying to create a little cone shapes. Okay. So a little bit of cone shapes, not shapes. And I'm just increasing the tone. So this is raw umber. Also, I'm going to introduce a little bit of cobalt blue, a little bit of ultramarine blue, and start building a little more. I'm just taking a little more water. I'm just adding maybe one or two pine cone a little stronger. I'm just adding a little more detail on the front as increasing the value. Maybe there's a couple of tree right here. Okay. At the moment that it's a little too wet. What I'm going to do is do a couple of barks, but I will let it dry while I can start tackling a little more on the foreground. So obviously very diluted. I'm going to just do a very, if I mix all the colors, it should produce a nice gray, very light. So I'm going to just test. That one is very light, extremely diluted. So I'm going to come in. I'm going to obviously leave a little bit of white in the background. So I'll add a little. So I'm just going to continue. That one is not taking a lot of water, so I'm going to switch to a bigger brush, and all I'm doing is a really thin wash. So also I'm going to come in with a dry brush, and I'm going to take in a few areas. I'll take out a little more, so probably you can't see, but I'm now lifted a little more color. It looks like I'll introduce a little bit of color, and wherever I've drawn a little bit of line, I'm going to add a little bit of cobalt blue. And I'm going to do is add I'm going to come in, make it a little dark, but at this stage. Okay. So a little bit of colors. While this is getting a little lighter, I'm going to use the back of the palette knife to create some scratches. So a little bit of texture, and it's slightly dry. I'm going to add a little more dark tones. I'm using a transparent paints gray here. I'm going to come in, add, as I said, you want to make it a little darker because it's going to compensate once it's completely dry. Okay, so a little bit branches. Just gives a little more interest to things going on. So a little bit of shadow. A little bit of dust. Okay. That's fine. At this stage, I'm going to just dry a little bit. I'm okay with this. I want to give a little more sharper edge to this, and then I'm going to just clean a little bit. Okay, so I'm fine with the background. I'm just going to create a little more drama in that area. So I'm going to go burnt sienna, and then a little bit of as a pine tree, and I'm going to just create a little more. Okay. I'm just using the back of the brush, add some darker tones. And not to forget, okay. Okay, and I'm going to start continuing to add a little more drama over here. Probably at this stage, what I need is a little more color. So gray, I'm putting in a little more blue. So I'm cleaning the edge, top edge. So I want a nice clean soft edge on the top. Okay. And I continue with a little more grass. And let's see. I'm just barely touching and creating a little more grass. Okay, a little more here. This gives that going in the foreground, a little bit of scratches, and I'm going to come in and a little more. So also I want to make sure that the edge is not as rough, and I can blend it. Okay, so a little more edge, and at this stage I'm going to start creating some twigs and branches coming out from here. Burnt sienna, red, so a needle brush like this is very handy, and just the tip of it creates very interesting texture, and also that fuzzy effect saying gives you I'm going to add a little bit of slightly darker branches. Mix up thin ones. Like something coming out of the frame as well. Okay, and I'll do a couple of slightly fat ones with a slightly bigger brush. And a couple of trees. So I'm gonna just go commit a little more. I didn't want a fat one. Accidents happen, so I'm going to try to make it work. Okay. And while this is dry now, I'm going to just come in. I'm going to just dry a little bit. Also, this one needs a little more shadow, so I'm gonna just do a little more shadow in the branches. Okay, so that's it. I need a few more grasses here. Okay, I think I'm going to call it quits. Let me just dry and then I'm going to reveal it. So, I always enjoy this part of the painting. Satisfying, even if the painting doesn't look good, still satisfying. I'm not saying this one is not good, it's alright. It's not bad. I might add a couple more reeds or grass over here. It just feels too Okay, let me see if it's in the frame. Yes, and if you like the video and if you haven't subscribe, it helps me a lot. Until next time, keep watercoloring, and the paints and the pigments, scroll to the end of the video. You should see all the brush and the pigments I'm using. Any questions or any comments, just post it below. I'll be happy to answer. Till next time, keep watercoloring and enjoy. Thanks. Bye.